So first of all, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Cobey Wess. She has served as a senior advisor to SVN in Colorado since 2009. She was recently promoted to vice president of the Northern Colorado Division. She has established herself as a strong landlord representative and has great success with the sale of complicated multi-tenant investment properties, and I can attest to that. She's awesome. Additionally, Cobey continues to demonstrate success in the sale and leasing of retail, office, and industrial properties. Cobey has an extensive background as an entrepreneur and business consulting marketing professional. In addition to owning and operating several businesses, she has served as a major account executive for Integrated Business Analysis, a multinational business consulting firm. At IBA, Cobey worked with national assignments which involve multiple industries and involve facilitation of strategic planning. Cobey's experience in lease negotiations and commercial sales provides value experience from the tenant and landlord's perspective. This experience, coupled with her business consulting history, provides an excellent background for helping companies of all sizes with their unique real estate needs. Cobey earned her bachelor's degree in both business administration and agricultural business from Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. She's a licensed real estate broker in the state of Colorado. Her real estate affiliations include the National Association of Realtors, ICSC, for those of you who know that's International Council of Shopping Centers, CREW, Commercial Real Estate for Women, Northern Colorado Commercial Association of Realtors, and the Fort Collins Commercial Brokers Group. So Cobey, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Stacy. It's nice to see everybody. It's very unusual. Usually this is all done in person and I can see your faces and I can see you laugh at my jokes. So staring at a computer screen to do this is just different for me, so bear with me. But hopefully I'll still be a little bit funny. So let's see, I'm gonna do a screen share now, bring up my first slide. All right. I am going to speak about mostly office property. I'm going to give Melissa the opportunity to discuss our amazing retail world right now. And I'm going to focus primarily on investment property and primarily in the office sector. The slide here is a graph of new construction projects for Larimer and Weld County. You can see that about a third of the projects are in the planning and the proposed stages. Chances are that we're going to see a stall out in a lot of these proposed projects, and probably we won't see these completed this year, depending on what happens maybe early 2021 as we get past this, the COVID. Hopefully that's when we start to see some light at the end of the tunnel. We'll have more come to fruition. But right now we're expecting that these proposed and planned projects, a lot of them don't end up happening the rest of this year. Here's an example of the average sales per month pre-COVID, BC. We know how BC and AC hopefully is just around the corner. But as you can see, we have gone down significantly. I think though, even if you look at that chart of sales per month during the pandemic, you probably had a lot of things that went under contract at the beginning of the year that still ended up closing even in March, April, and May. The far right here shows just slightly negative absorption here for office space. As you can see, the far left is our Great Recession of 2008, 2009. That's actually when I came into the business, which was fantastic timing. And then you can see our trend for positive absorption over the last 10 years or so. I mean, I think there's a chance, I'm seeing a lot of movement in office. It's not necessarily absorbing new space. In fact, we haven't had a lot of newly delivered office space on the market, even in this 10-year span. It's been pretty nominal. But you do see a lot of people moving back and forth. You see some downsizing. There is certainly not a lack of activity. And I'm just very, very busy with a lot of service-oriented office space. Veterinary clinic, physical therapy, medical related, insurance, there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of people moving forward and doing business as normal. I know for as many industries that are really struggling and individual businesses that are really struggling, I feel on the flip side of that, we have a lot that are not struggling and doing very well. So it's a little interesting right now, but I would say that the activity, especially maybe, I mean, all had a couple months of vacation there except Kristen, but it's been really strong recently. Here's a graph of our sales transaction volume. As you can see, 2020 is the lowest, and granted, this is through September, is the lowest that it's been after a couple really almost record years. But I really do expect this graph or this bar to go up significantly. We still have a whole fourth quarter to complete, and there's just been a lot of pent-up demand while everybody sat on the sidelines for the last few months. And there's a lot of capital out there. There's a lot of people that are wanting to spend money. Interest rates are low and people want to take advantage of that. So I would say from the investor standpoint, I think we're going to see this bar go up significantly by the end of the year. What I did here is I just pulled out 4 significant office deals in our region over the last year. And that first one, Rangeview at Rocky Mountain Avenue, Peter Cast provided this information for me. And that was in November 2019 when we were all fat and happy and didn't foresee any of this pandemic stuff on the horizon at all. This sold at a 7.25 cap rate. It was 100% occupied, sale price $14 million. And $268 a square foot. It's a little bit interesting if you look at all of these, how similar the price per square foot is. When you get in a much larger property, that much square footage like this one is too, your cap rates tend to go up a little bit because you have multiple tenants, some shorter terms in there, a little bit more risk. This next one at 4090 Clydesdale, that was actually one of my sales. I represented the buyer. And we had went under contract in January, and our closing date was Friday, the 13th of March. And it's really interesting because I remember sitting at the closing table that day, and the buyers asked if I wanted to go to dinner, and I couldn't do it that night, but I'm like, well, let's go next week. And we were all celebrating. And by 6 o'clock that evening is when the stay-at-home order went into place. And I was so nervous for my buyers. They're just a fantastic small ranching family. And, but all their tenants have been wonderful, and they've all been paying their rent. They've all been really stable. This building was very, very high quality. Some of the highest quality construction and tenant finish that I think we see in a building in Northern Colorado. So that was a 1031 exchange. My cap rate is 6.42. So that was in March, and then we go to April, and this building at 608 East Harmony that Jason Ells sold, really similar square footage or price per square foot at 267, and a cap rate of 6.7. I understand that the seller here had to do quite a bit of fix some maintenance items before it sold, mostly hail damage to the roof and stucco and such. When I was thinking about this one, I don't think I had a sale on a building between spring of last year and spring of this year that didn't get a new roof on it while we were under contract. It was just the norm. And it was always cumbersome to get through because then you pull in insurance and all of that, and it's always a little tricky. But I think every single building, and luckily this summer, we've had other things to worry about, not quite so much hail damage. The next one was sold by our very own Jamie Globnick and her dad, Ron Keel, at Sky Pond. This is out by Centera. So this was a sale that happened in August, 9.6 million at a cap rate of 6.9%. This building, all 4 of these buildings are 100% occupied. And the buyer of this building turned out to be in affiliation with one of the tenants, the Eye Center that was in the building there. So those are our 4 significant sales in our region that kind of just, you think you might see a pattern here, during the pandemic, but you really don't. Our values are really holding strong. We're not seeing a fluctuation in cap rates yet. And I would say multifamily, it's amazing what things are trading for right now. Like, it's just strong as ever. And then the solid investment tenants with solid investment office deals, and even like your light industrial, your service oriented buildings that have the contractors in them, or the roofers, or the insurance, like those are all really stable type businesses right now. I would say shopping centers in the retail, and of course everybody knows about the restaurants, are the ones that are, maybe you have deals falling apart from either the investment side, because nobody really understands the stability of those tenants right now. I thought this is an interesting topic, and I just didn't want to spend too much time on it, but there's a lot of controversy right now about, are we going to have all this vacant office space? In talking to some of my colleagues, like even in Denver, we have an SBN office in San Francisco, and they're saying their downtowns, it's kind of eerie. They're really quiet, the big corporate offices, people are still working from home. So there's a lot of talk about all this office vacancy we might have come on the market. Here, again, I'm seeing a lot of activity, a lot of medical transition. In the last couple of years, the popular trend in office space is to have that open collaborative workspace. And it looks really cool. I think it attracts the young people. You put a slide in there and a coffee bar, and it's very trendy. But I think we're going to see maybe a transition back to the private office spaces. I know myself, I have to have like walls around me and a door closed to be able to concentrate. I cannot, if I hear a conversation happening, I just lose my train of thought. So this is always the way I prefer to work. And I think just to be able to stay in an office and keep other people's germs away, I think we might see a trend towards this, and some TI happening to some of those collaborative workspaces. You also need larger space to accommodate the employee distancing. I had a listing downtown, and the owner was on one floor, and the next floor we had a tenant move out, so we were marketing that entire floor for lease. But when the pandemic hit, we actually took that off the lease so the owner could spread out her employees, and she ended up taking both floors. So where she could fit everybody in 2,500 square feet previous, now she needed 5,000 square feet to keep everybody coming to work. Even rotation schedules require similar space needs. You're not going to really save and be able to downsize if you're rotating employees in and out. Distractions, like people thought it was the greatest thing in the world to be able to work from home. And I think all of us have always dreamed of that. And then you get home and the Amazon guy rings the doorbell and the dogs start barking and the kids come through the door. And I mean, it's kind of fun to see it in reality when you're on these calls, but the refrigerator's full of food, and then once you eat so much, then you have to go on a walk. And so to say that maybe our productivity is down working from home, I think we're hearing that from a lot of employers. Bill Riley in my office, his sister runs an engineering company in Denver, and she has about 40 employees. And she was saying that in the beginning of all of this, when workers first started working from home, that everybody was really productive. They were scared for their jobs. They wanted to impress the boss and keep their jobs, and they were all over it. And then everybody kind of took about a 6-week, 8-week vacation there for a little bit, and they've had a really hard time getting the productivity back on track to match what it was when everybody was in the office, even though they have the same amount of work. And there's also just the company culture of keeping everybody on the same team and moving forward and providing even that social outlet for people that, like their jobs and need that energy that the workplace provides. On the other hand, the argument towards smaller offices would be the continuation to work from home. I mean, look at us right here. This is so much more efficient. Most of the time, we all drive over to Ptarmigan and we have lunch, and then we visit afterwards, and we cut down on drive time and just the costs associated with these meetings. Even though I miss seeing everybody in person, like there's definitely, especially if you're somebody who travels by plane or something like that to go to meetings, I think there's been a lot of realization that maybe not all of that needs to happen all the time. And then I think technology too, like if you're somebody who has kind of escaped being able to have the younger people in the office run the technology, and just you haven't kept up to speed or learned along with it. Like if you wanted to keep working during all of this, you were really forced into it. And so now you have maybe even older people or people who weren't really on top of their technology. They've figured it out now, and it makes it easier for them not to have to be in the office all the time. And then I would say there's probably some workers that are better motivated working from home. I know tons of people who have all of a sudden gone back to the office and said, you know what, I from now on want to work from home on Fridays. So I think these two things balance each other out. Like I said, a lot of movement from some offices that are busy right now, taking on larger space. Then you have some people considering downsizing and becoming more efficient and working from home. But I'm just not seeing the big trend, not here. I would say you might see that more in the corporate environments in downtown, which leads to the next slide of urban versus suburban. There's definitely, I don't know if you've all been reading about the trend in residential, people moving out of the city, especially as they can work from home and do their Zoom calls, and move into more suburban markets. Well, the same is happening with business and our office uses. And in a way, you can consider that Fort Collins is a suburb of Denver. And people are enjoying the single story versus a 15-story building with airflow through, thousands of people in that building. No elevator. There's more modern variable controls. You have kind of that hub and spoke model where they might have like your corporate headquarters, but then adding a lot of smaller offices in the region to accommodate for people that are moving into more suburban lifestyle. And really just the lower density is kind of pushing that too, as this pandemic is just encouraging people to get a little space between themselves and everything else around them. So in summary, and this is my last slide, and if all of this talk about cap rates, I know it's not a language that everybody speaks. This is always a good one to maybe screenshot and keep on your desk if it's something you kind of have to remind yourself about the way the cap rate and the value interact opposite. But what I'd like to say is that, what we're seeing right now in office investment properties is that the values are holding strong. Our cap rates are still relatively low. We're not seeing decompression of them at this point, especially like medical. I've got a new medical investment property around $2 million that'll come to the market next week, and I know I'm going to have multiple offers on it. So there's money to be spent out there. We've had this pent-up demand for the last 5 months. A lot of the investors are telling me that they want to close before the election because of the threat of the 1031 exchange being changed with a new administration. That's another incentive that I'm hearing quite a bit for people wanting to close sooner than later. So I wonder when I was putting this together, do I sound too positive? Because I know there's a lot of hardships going around right now, but I don't, maybe we're in just a little bit of a bubble that we're protected because we live in such a great community, and Northern Colorado has just become more and more popular, and even as they come out of Denver. But I'm just really hoping that this is the same conversation we're having 6 months from now, a year from now, and that we got through it and the values and the cap rates still held true. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cobey. Appreciate that. I do know that I'm on a state committee across the state, and our organization is looking at doing flex time schedules, including telecommuting on a permanent basis. We found that we're still maintaining our productivity level, at least on the government side of things. So that's interesting to hear the thought processes across all industries. I'm excited, but I do have to say my dog likes to make an appearance every once in a while on the screen. and she's a 100-pound black lab. So yeah, she's a little crazy, and it gets a little awkward trying to trying to juggle. So thank you for that. If you guys